Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Kinnula humanoid encounter. Two young men, P. Aliranta and E.J. Snek, were working in the woods in Kangaskila, Kinnula, Finland when Mr. Aliranta noticed a 15-foot-wide metallic saucer-shaped object descend and land on four thin legs in a clearing 50 feet away. After it landed, a short entity just under 3 feet tall glided to the ground from an opening in the underside. It was dressed in a green one-piece, diver's suit and wore a helmet with a circular faceplate. It approached the young men, walking on top of the deep snow, and Aliranta moved toward it with his power chain saw in hand. Through 3 windows in the upper part of the object, 3 more entities could be seen. The humanoid retreated from Aliranta and was levitating into the object from underneath when the young man grabbed it by the heel of its boot with his bare hand. He found that touching it burned like a hot iron and he had to let go at once. As soon as the being was back inside the object, it ascended with a slight buzzing or humming sound. Both men felt stiff all over and had difficulty moving. 4 landing leg marks and small footprints were left behind in the snow. Case description. On Friday, February 5, 1971, 2 young men from Kinnula, Petter Aliranta, 21, and Esko Juhani Snek, 18, were working in the woods of the village of Kangaskila in Kinnula, near the borders of the counties of Middle Finland and Vasa. At about 3 p.m. they were about to end their work, for the cloudy day was slowly turning dark. Aliranta had just turned off his motor saw when he suddenly noticed a strange metallic-looking object at tree top level which was descending straight down. It had the shape of 2 saucers on top of each other and was about 5 meters in diameter. At the bottom of the vehicle there were 4 thin, 5 to 10 centimeters, landing feet, more than 2 meters long. Within a few moments the object descended in a small opening between the trees, about 15 meters away from Aliranta and Snek. The last mentioned, however, did not notice what was going on at this time as he was still busy cutting branches off a tree with his motor saw. During the descent, a round opening appeared in the center of the underpart of the UFO, and from this, immediately the vehicle had settled firmly on the ground. A strange little being glided down. It actually did glide down those 2 meters to the snow-covered ground. There was no normal falling movement. After this, the being started approaching Aliranta. Its movements were very stiff and the steps short. The being looked like a space man, or robot, and was less than 1 meter tall, perhaps 90 centimeters. The body was covered with a one-piece suit of a green color. The head had the same cover, and in the middle of it was a sort of lens facing forwards. The hands were round at the tips and no fingers could be seen. The boots at the feet were a uniform part of the dress, and green as well. The humanoid seemed to move in a strange way on top of the snow surface. It did not go down into the deep snow as one would have expected. As this entity was slowly but steadily advancing towards Aliranta, he started his motor saw and began to approach the strange walker with motor saw in hand. At this point, Esko Snek also became aware of the strange happenings. The turning on of the motor saw had made him turn around to see what Aliranta was up to. The little green man and Aliranta were approaching each other, the distance between them now less than 10 meters. Suddenly the being turned around and started eventually to go back towards the saucer. This made Aliranta braver, and he hurried to catch the humanoid. Within the saucer, other entities were now visible. There were 3 windows on the top side of the vehicle, about 1 meter wide, and through one on the right side 3 moving forms were visible, human-like, although no features or details could be seen. As Petter Aliranta was about to get hold of the humanoid, when about 3 meters from the saucer, it rose into the air in a strange way, floating towards the opening from which it had come. The humanoid having risen to more than 1 meter above the ground, Aliranta reached out quickly and grabbed hold of the heel of the right boot with his bare right hand. However, he had let go of the foot right away as it burned like a hot iron. The wounds caused by the burning on the thumb, forefinger and inside of the hand were still clearly visible 2 months later. At the same time, Aliranta automatically took a couple of steps backwards, so the entity was able to glide back into the craft undisturbed. The moment the humanoid had got into the saucer, the latter started to give a slight humming or buzzing sound, and it slowly started to ascend from the ground. Aliranta felt a weak gust of air at this moment, but no smoke or smell could be detected, nor any light phenomenon. There were no lights visible on or in the vehicle during the incident. As the saucer rose upwards, the round opening at the bottom closed, but the landing feet kept their position, and within some 15 seconds the whole object had disappeared into the sky. According to the eyewitnesses, the visit of this strange craft lasted at least 3 minutes. After the saucer had disappeared, the men could not talk, for they were too amazed by the whole incident. They felt stiff all over and had some difficulty in moving, especially Peter Aliranta. It took them close on 1 hour before they were able to walk away from the woods. Before they left, they had a closer look at the markings left in the snow, evidence of this incredible happening. At the end of each landing foot there had been a round plate. These plates had penetrated the full depth of the snow cover, then about 40 centimeters, leaving 4 round prints about 35 centimeters across in an even square with a side of about 2 meters. Within this square the snow had melted some 5 to 10 centimeters. On the surface, the footsteps left by the humanoid were also clearly visible. They were small, 15 centimeters, and quite circular in shape. The strides were all along the same length, even those made during the chase, about 20 centimeters.
On the night of March 24, 1975, a man named Giichi Shiota was at a landfill in Kawano when he stumbled across a sight that would force him to reassess his preconceived notions about the world in which he lived. According to Shiota's report, sometime during the night he spied what he described as a luminous, suit-clad figure, not unlike the Kinnula Humanoid, that seemed to be suspended in mid-air. Shiota would later estimate that this unusual entity, which he wasted no time in dubbing an alien cosmonaut, was hovering almost 7 feet off the ground and at a distance of approximately 300 feet away from him. Shiota, who had claimed to see a UFO in the past, was not alarmed by the apparently weightless apparition, but he did claim that he immediately developed a headache. While it is pure speculation, one must wonder whether or not this alleged alien was trying to communicate with Shiota. This theory is based on the fact that numerous other alien eyewitnesses have made similar claims, including the unlucky Italian night watchman, Pier Fortunato Zanfretta, who claimed to have suffered head-splitting headaches while his alien captors attempted to communicate with him during what is known as the harrowing Zanfretta alien abductions. Astounded by the sight of this ostensibly alien entity, Shiota became obsessed with the notion of capturing this visitor on film in order to prove that his bizarre encounter was real and not a product of an overactive imagination or worse, as some no doubt speculated. So, armed with no less than 3 cameras, it was with a grim determination that Shiota returned to the scene of his encounter night after night. While this sort of mania infects many who have had brushes with the unknown, opening up new doors of inquiry and forging new obsession, most, sadly, are never able to get another glimpse beyond the veil. Shiota, however, proved to be an exception to the rule. On the night of March 31, after a week of lurking in the landfill with dogged patience, Shiota claimed that he was suddenly stricken with another brutal headache. When he looked up, he was what he described as a Shiota bluish-white electrical disturbance floating roughly 300 feet in front of him. Shiota had been staring, enthralled, at this anomalous, cloud-like formation for several minutes, when he testified that an almost 6-foot-tall, humanoid apparition appeared in the midst of this disturbance. He stated that this unusual being leisurely descended until it was hovering just a foot off the ground. It was then that it began to glide toward the intrepid, amateur investigator. Shiota, to his credit, refused to succumb to panic and rose to the occasion, snapping photos as quickly as he could using his Nikomet L camera and 200mm Nikkor lens. These pictures, which bear more than a passing resemblance to that of the Metal Man of Falkville, have, for reasons difficult to ascertain, all but faded into ufological obscurity. The unknown entity had traversed more than half the distance between it and Shiota, when it suddenly veered to the right. The glowing thing then traveled in that direction at an extraordinary rate for about 30 feet before it disappeared. While it must have felt like an eternity, Shiota quickly determined that the entire event had lasted no more than a minute. It should be noted that just a month before Shiota's disturbing encounter, in Kofu City, Japan, 2 young students also claimed to have had a face-to-face encounter with an unknown, suit-clad, alien entity. While these boys did not have a camera at hand, they did manage to draw what has come to be known as the FANGED Humanoids of Kofu. Whether or not there is any direct connection between these 2 strange cases, save that of time and proximity, remains to be seen. Still others have concluded that the images are reminiscent of the now famous Cumberland spaceman image. Shiota never encountered this odd creature again, but whatever it was, be it alien invader, interdimensional being, time traveler or space ghost, the missing photos could have proved that this thing was real and not a figment of one man's imagination.
A fanged humanoid. Kofu, Yamanashi Prefecture, Japan, February 23, 1975. Between 6 p.m. and 7 p.m., 2 7-year-old boys named Kono and Yamahata watched a luminous orange UFO approach Kofu, Japan while making a ticking sound. It landed on 3 ball-shaped legs in a nearby vineyard. The object was a domed disc, 5 meters in diameter and 6 feet high. The boys got very close to it, and discovered the surface of the object was silver-colored and had strange characters embossed on its surface. A ladder extended out of the craft down to the ground, and a humanoid creature slightly over 4 feet tall disembarked. It wore a silver uniform and carried something that looked like a gun. His skin was dark brown and he had large pointed ears, but his large head had no facial features, no eyes, nose or mouth. It merely had wrinkles on the face, and 3 silvery 2-inch-long fangs where the mouth should be. Both boys could see one more smaller humanoid in the cockpit. The being that had emerged reached out and touched one of the boys, patting him twice on the shoulder and uttering words like a tape recorder running backwards. The boy who had been touched sat down, paralyzed either by the touch or fear, but his companion took him on his back and carried him from the vineyard. They then ran to one of the boys' homes and informed their parents, who could at first see the orange light pulsating in the vineyard. Then it disappeared as they watched. 2 concrete posts were found pushed over at the landing site.
Slimy Footprints at around 11 p.m. on August 1, 1984 in the town of Tsushima in Nagasaki Prefecture. A squid fisherman named Ryu Shirazaki was walking home from the local pier after work. As he passed near the Kuta River, he came upon a small group of children playing at the water's edge. While it was not entirely uncommon to encounter people fishing in the river at night, it was rather surprising to see youngsters there. As Shirazaki approached the children, he was struck by how bizarre they appeared in the moonlight. He could make out swarthy faces, unusually spindly arms and legs, and glistening skin. Suspicious, Shirazaki called out to them as he neared, but they seemed startled and quickly disappeared into the water. The next morning when he returned to the same spot, Shirazaki discovered a set of moist, teardrop-shaped footprints on the nearby pavement. The prints, which appeared to consist of a slimy substance that had begun to coagulate under the hot morning sun, stretched for about 20 meters. Each footprint measured 22 centimeters, about 10 in long, and 12 centimeters, 5 in wide, and they were spaced about 50 to 60 centimeters, about 2 feet apart. Shirazaki and a few curious onlookers immediately suspected the footprints belonged to a kappa. People began to gather around as the news spread quickly through town, and all agreed the prints belonged to a kappa. In the minds of many residents, the footprints confirmed the existence of the river imps they knew through local legends. When police forensic investigators arrived on the scene, they determined that the slimy footprints consisted of an unknown secretion. They took a sample to the lab for analysis, but the results unfortunately turned out to be inconclusive because the sample was too small. The police eventually dropped their investigation, and the mystery of the slimy footprints was never solved.
The Uncleaned Guest. Another recent kappa encounter occurred on June 30, 1991 in the town of Saito in Miyazaki Prefecture, when an office worker named Mitsugu Matsumoto and his wife Junko returned home for the evening. Upon opening the front door, the Matsumotos were confronted with a strange smell inside their home. Inside, they found dozens of small, wet footprints around the front door and in the hallway, bathroom, and 2 tatami rooms. At first they suspected a burglar, but they soon realized nothing had been stolen. The police briefly surveyed the house, but found nothing except a floor soiled by 30 footprints, each measuring about 7 centimeters long and 6 centimeters wide, and having 4 or 5 toes. To Matsumoto, the footprints did not look human, nor did they appear to belong to any animal he could imagine. Later that night, as Mrs. Matsumoto was putting laundry away, she discovered an unusual orange stain on some clothing. The next morning, as Matsumoto inspected the house more closely, he discovered a deposit of orange liquid on the portable stereo in the tatami room. He took a sample to the local public health center for analysis, and the results indicated the liquid had an extremely high iron content and a chemical composition resembling spring water. Troubled by the incident, Matsumoto decided to visit a shaman. After listening to Matsumoto's story, the shaman encouraged him not to worry, explaining that the kappa indigenous to the nearby swamp enjoyed playing the occasional prank on local residents. The kappa were harmless, the shaman told him. Harmless, perhaps, but Matsumoto found the kappa difficult to clean up after. He tried using detergent, paint thinner and gasoline to remove the footprints and orange stains, but nothing seemed to work.
Ningen. Over the past few years, rumors have circulated in Japan about the existence of gigantic humanoid life forms inhabiting the icy waters of the Antarctic. Reportedly observed on multiple occasions by crew members of government-operated whale research ships, these so-called Ningen, from Japanese humans, are said to be completely white in color with an estimated length of 20 to 30 meters. Eyewitnesses describe them as having a human-like shape, often with legs, arms, and even 5-fingered hands. Sometimes they are described as having fins or a large mermaid-like tail instead of legs, or even tentacles. The only visible facial features are the eyes and mouth. According to one account, crew members on deck observed what they initially thought was a foreign submarine in the distance. When they approached, however, it became clear from the irregular shape of the thing that it was not man-made, it was alive. The creature quickly disappeared underwater. The popular thread attracted the attention of many readers from outside the two-channel community, and the November 2007 issue of Mew magazine, a Japanese publication devoted to the study of paranormal phenomena, which featured an article about the Antarctic humanoids. The article speculated on the possibility of unidentified creatures inhabiting the southern seas, and it included a Google Earth screenshot showing what looks like a Ningen in the South Atlantic Ocean off the coast of Namibia. To date, no solid evidence has been presented to confirm the existence of the Ningen. The government is believed to have kept detailed records of the sightings, but they have released no information to the public and have reportedly instructed eyewitnesses to remain silent. Ningen sightings seem to occur most frequently at night, making them all the more difficult to photograph. In still images, the sea cryptids mostly just look like icebergs, though it is said that their smooth, human-like skin can be seen when the photographs are enlarged. In any case, no convincing photographs have been made public either because they do not exist or because, as some argue, the government does not want to invite undue scrutiny and tarnish the scientific reputation of the whale research program. This creature's existence is seemingly possible since the immense land of Antarctica is almost entirely unwalked by man, being only seen in total from satellite photos.
Akkorokamui is a gigantic part human part octopus monster from Ainu and Shinto folklore, which lurks in Funka Bay in Hokkaido, Japan, and has been sighted in several other locations including Taiwan and Korea for centuries. According to Shinto mythology, the creature is human-like and is partly bright red in color. The 19th-century account by John Batchelor confirms this. His book, The Ainu and Their Folklore, provides many details of the creature. It states that the creature was 120 meters in length. The book specifies that the red color of the Akkorokamui is striking red, seemingly likened to the color of the reflection of the setting sun upon water. The Akkorokamui is also characteristically described with the ability to self-amputate, like several octopus species, and regenerate limbs. This characteristic manifests in the belief in Shinto that Akkorokamui has healing powers. Consequently, it is believed among followers that giving offerings to Akkorokamui will heal ailments of the body, in particular, disfigurements and broken limbs. Nade-yakushi is housed within the Takoyakushi-do, a shrine dedicated to Nade-yakushi, along the street Teramachi-dori, meaning Temple Town, in Kyoto. The legend, I shall swallow the whale and ship, empty the sea, and appear in red when you are cursed. Akkorokamui. Once, spirits cursed Rebunge, a villager of Abuda Tuyora, to see the destruction of his town. They sent a part spider part human creature, Yaoshikapu, to fulfill the curse. Yaoshikapu cased rampant destruction throughout the town, slaughtering so many that the streets were filled with crimson blood. After hearing the townsfolk tremble with fear, the sea kami, Ropponkamui, transformed Yaoshikapu into an octopus, and cast her into the sea. After Yaoshikapu was cast into the sea, her size began to grow, eventually beginning to consume larger prey, such as whales and ships. One day, Akkorokamui gobbled up a boat full of fishermen. In her stomach, they called for help. Hearing the cries, Ropponkamui poisoned Akkorokamui, giving her great pain. As Akkorokamui hollered in agony, the fishermen escaped. However, Akkorokamui learned to harness the venom, using it to attack her prey. In a 1800s sighting, John Batchelor stated that as the monster attacked the ship, it emitted a dark fluid which has a very powerful and noxious odor, confirming the myth's actuality.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.